We are going to hold a counseling session under the Ministry of Women Affairs. They are going to be counseled. They are going to be, their parents will also be counseled just so that they don't give up. So that they don't give up. Education is a necessity, and this, what happened to these children is a true example that they need to go to school. They need to be educated so as to avoid such incidences in the far future. Thank you.
We have been speaking with the First Lady of Zamfara State, Her Excellency Haji Aisha Bello Muhammad, on this joyful moment of the release of the abducted children or girls of Government Girls Science Secondary School, Jangebe, here in Zamfara State. Stay tuned.
Now that was my colleague Jamila Ibrahim speaking with the First Lady of Zamfara State. Okay, so bari mu gani Jamilu
Dala muna kira ga 'yan jarida su kawo da mai girma an sa wa yara cikin wuri. 'Yan makaranta su zauna kar wanda ya tashi kowa su zauna ya yi da kuki. 'Yan makaranta su zauna kar wanda ya tashi kowa su zauna ya yi da kuki. 'Yan makaranta su zauna.
Good morning, Nigerian. Excuse me. Dan jami'in waya ta Allah. Barcin da Allah jami'in ita. Taimako min da waya Jamilu.
Allah, a ba mu haɗin kai da Allah.
My cable. Your truck. Let me take my cable now. I'm recording.
Outside. You want to
Yau ya mashi magana, ni da yanzu ta zan yi.
Magana da shi nan da Good morning, Nigerian. Is that it? None. Okay. That's so hard, Annie. A chance of that. I said.
Abducted students of Government Girls Secondary School, Jangebe, released.
Aviation Minister briefs President Buhari on Zamfara students' abduction.
Everything that is humanly possible by any government to put in place to ensure security of lives and property is being put together to ensure that this doesn't happen.
Federal government rolls out COVID-19 vaccine strategy ahead of arrival of first batch.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss fixing dilapidated public schools.
We apologize for starting the program late, as we have sharing news that the girls in Jangabe Secondary School have been released. Now let's continue. As the recent attack on some secondary schools in the country has revealed a lot about the condition of our post-primary institutions. Kinsley?
That's right. Jumai from Kankara in Katsina to Kagara in Nigeria, and then Jangebe in Zamfara State as the latest examples. The state of public secondary schools is indeed appalling, and many observers believe that certainly this is not conducive to learning.
And from the dormitories to the classes and laboratories up to furniture, the story is the same. Old facilities in many schools, both primary and post-primary schools across the country, built 4 or more decades ago without any rehabilitation.
It is indeed a common sight for dilapidated or otherwise degraded buildings to dot the landscape of many secondary schools in different parts of the country. And some of them, of course, have blown off roofs, terrible buildings, death of furniture, and in some cases, no furniture at all, and also lack of other aids for learning and teaching, thereby exposing the pupils and students to harsh conditions.
Quite an eyesore, Kinsley, and in some communities, the school structures have even collapsed, leaving the pupils to resort to learning in an open environment, not minding the season.
As I mentioned a while ago, the absence sometimes of instructional materials such as textbooks, equipment for practicals, among others, is also pretty common in a number of these schools that go by the names of either secondary or primary.
And you know, Kinsley, is a well-known fact that the condition of these schools to a large extent determines the performance of the students in that school.
There's no question about that, and this is the reason why a number of communities where the schools are located are, of course, appealing to their respective state governments to rehabilitate such schools in order to improve learning conditions for their wards and children.
And so, how long should be taken to rehabilitate schools after construction? What role should communities and PTA play in the maintenance of these schools? What is the effect of dilapidated schools on teaching and learning? Should rehabilitation of schools not form part of constituency projects of our lawmakers? These are some of the questions we intend to address as we discuss fixing dilapidated public schools in Nigeria. I am Jumo Yusuf.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Jumai to also welcome you to this edition of the program. And as my colleague Jumai indicated a while ago, we're kicking off Good Morning Nigeria pretty late on account of the fact that we were taking a live transmission from Zamfara, where the students of the government girls secondary school Jangebe have been released by their abductors, some 300 of them. And as part of our conversation this morning, we shall be crossing over to our correspondent, Shehu Mohammed Date. We spoke with him yesterday, of course, from Jangebe. And if we have the opportunity, we'll also have an interaction with the governor of Zamfara State. In the meantime, let's take the highlights of the morning news. Here is our colleague Tessie Omeri. Good morning, Tessie.
Hi, Kingsley and Jumaye. Good morning. Welcome to the morning news. The abducted students of Government Girls Secondary School Jangebe in Talata Marafa local government area of Zamfara State have been released. Governor Bello Mohammed, who received the released students this morning at Government House Gusau, said the actual number of students kidnapped in the school is 279 as against 317 announced when the incident happened 4 days ago. He thanked all those who played a role in ensuring the release of the students and appealed to parents not to use the incident to withdraw their daughters from school. The governor said the abduction was done to tarnish the image of the government. Vice President Yemi Osibanjo has challenged participants of Senior Executive Course 43 at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru, to provide a practical guide that will address policy implementation in Nigeria. He gave the charge at the inauguration of the participants.
An enormous responsibility. It is that of realizing that from this stage, the task of finding solutions to our national and social problems that could affect the trajectory of the lives of millions has been placed upon your shoulders.
Federal government has rolled out COVID-19 vaccine strategy ahead of the 4 million doses expected to arrive the country in a few hours. Tagged Teach, the strategy will ensure accurate database for tracking and tracing by NAFDAC, as well as opportunity to follow up in case of reactions and adverse effects.
We feel that with the collaboration that exists between the national and the subnational level, we'll be able to roll out these vaccines in a way that will be testament to the resources, both human and material, that exist within the Nigerian polity.
This is not a time to work at cross purposes. It is not a time to be making private or parallel arrangements for vaccine procurement or vaccine administration. Vaccines that are not approved by NAFDAC will be determined as dangerous and they will be seized by customs and NAFDAC.
Nigeria records 360 new infections of COVID-19. In the new figures released by Nigeria Center for Disease Control, indicates that Lagos has the highest with 120 new cases, followed by Edo State with 38, then Kaduna with 25. FCT and Imo have 23 each, Delta 19, Akwa Ibom and Plateau have 17 each, Rivers recorded 16, Nasarawa 15, Kwara 13 and Oyo 9. Also with new infections are Ogun with 8, Bauchi and Osun states recorded 4 each, Kano and Kebbi 3 each. Niger has 2, while Katsina has 1 new case. For now, Nigeria has 156,017 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 133,904 patients treated and discharged, while 1,915 patients died of the virus. And that's the highlight of the morning news. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Jumai after this break. Thanks for watching.
I bring you wonderful news. The village headmaster is coming back to your screen. Mo wire abi mi o wire. Teacher yo mo, a fẹ́ lọ wá nǹkan jẹ. Teacher yo mo, a fẹ́ lọ wá nǹkan jẹ. Ọmọ onírẹsì ti dé.
Ajebo na better school for last gidi. Not be all this on a rugged yes school for Ijabi. I don't know for you.
Second, it's called Oja Village. Kadesi. We no happy at all at all.
And I know that even you too, you are getting a lot of orders. Hey, we are trying, Shao. Sweep her leg out. She was standing there. Sweep it.
I love you so much.
And how did I give you the impression that I was interested in that position?
50-year anniversary.
You mean anniversary?
I mean, I talk with that now.
That not for me.
Not for me because of Pamio.
Teacher Jowo, I fell over country. I'm a fire, no be beanstalk, conquest. You know, I need to
Get your Milo FC Barcelona limited edition pack now before the final whistle blows on this promotion.
You are watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's take our newspaper review right away.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Teobi, is in the studio. Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you, Jume. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley.
Good morning. Let's go sharp to the Punch newspaper this morning. Just above, the Punch newspaper, above the masthead. External reserves dropped by 1.1 billion in 1 month. That's on page 31. NMA folds NPHCDA's registration portal for COVID-19 vaccination. You find the details on page 7. Reps summon Armored Customs Budget Office over duty waivers. And petroleum scarcity plow to hike price, says marketers. You find details on page 30 and 27. Just below the masthead, we have Southern State dismiss blockade. North food traders insist on strike. With kickers, we won't appeal to North traders. Herders should stop destroying our farms. That's attributed to Ondo. I don't know who is that. With no cows in our bushes, we'll produce more food, says Enugu farmers. Traders allege extortion, harassment, says leaders summoned by DSS for questioning. And you see the picture story there. Fuel queues and hawkers opposite the NNPC towers on the Herbert Macaulay Way, Central Business District and Duse Junction, Abuja on Monday. That's yesterday. Residents flee Niger community in trucks over insistent attacks. We find details on page 9. Yahya sacks 3 commissioners in Gombe cabinet reshuffle. Details on page 18. Divorce-seeking pastor's wife accuses husband of sleeping with members in church. You find all that on page 5. At the bottom plate of the Punch newspaper, 7 northern states shut schools over rising banditry abductions. Details on page 7. Ex-Kebbi senator in court for alleged 419 million naira fraud. Details on page 5. Police military team neutralizes 8 bandits, gunmen kill 10 in Katsina, Kaduna. Details on page 9. Kisley.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. Above the name flag, court remands ex-BPE DG Dickey over 1 billion naira bribe. Gunmen set police stations ablaze in Ebonyi and Akwa Ibom. Bandits killed 10 in attack on Kaduna communities. Boko Haram regrouping in my state, says governor. That's the governor of Nasarawa State. And below the name flag, abductors of pupils do it to embarrass government, says minister. And fuel queues back in FCT and Yobe. You can see the photograph there of a queue at the filling station opposite the NNPC towers in Abuja. That's in the Central Business District. PTF, that's the kicker. No COVID-19 vaccine for states without facilities. 3.92 million doses for delivery today. Beneficiaries to do e-registration. Buhari and Oshibajo to take first jab. Excuse me. Vaccination program. Health workers, security agents, and petrol station workers. People in councils with high virus infection. Adults 50 years and above, and those with underlying conditions between ages 18 and 49. 3 held for kidnapping in Adamawa. Konjo Iweala assumes office at WTO. That's page 4. Bayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let's start with the good news about the release of the girls of the Government Junior Girls Secondary School, Jangebe. The governor is on record to have clarified that 279 girls were the ones adopted, and they have all been released, not 317 as earlier reported. Jangebe is about 100 or more kilometers away from Gusau. They have been received at Government House, Gusau, and anytime from now, their parents will also have the opportunity of getting united with them, and subsequently they'll go through the required medical certification before they are now released to their parents. Meanwhile, petrol queues has surfaced in the Federal Capital Territory, Niger State, and some state and Nasarawa states. It is also reported in parts of Adamawa State. Oil marketers are speculating that this is a ploy to increase the pump price. The NNPC says there is enough fuel in the country and there is no intention to increase fuel pump now. Government and Labour are working, and until their committee comes out, government has put a stop on the reflecting pump price. The concomitant would increase crude oil price. Meanwhile, the observation for the long queue is that even filling stations where there are fuel, instead of selling at various points, you find that the tendency is they sell at one point. This causes these long, unnecessary queues. But outskirts of Abuja, fuel is being sold about 180 naira, and that is why most motorists are returning to the city where it is sold between 162 to 165. 3,924,000 doses of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine are expected to arrive Abuja in any time, in 3 hours' time, at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. The executive director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Faisal Shuaibu, says that there will be a brief ceremony at the airport. After the arrival, vials of the vaccine will be given to the National Agency for Drug and Administration for analysis over a period of 2 days. Hereafter, if clearance is given, the Petroleum Task Force team, the Federal Ministry of Health, and the National Primary Healthcare Agency will now converge at a treatment center at the National Hospital, where frontline health workers will be the first to be administered the vaccine. President Muhammadu Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo will have their vaccine live on television on Saturday. Other prominent personalities, Nigerians, will also be vaccinated. This is part of the awareness campaign. Meanwhile, the vaccine distribution has also been perfected by the National Primary Healthcare Distribution Agency. It says that vaccines will be flown to states, and states that do not have airports, there are cold vans, cold cabins that will freight the vaccines from the airport to the local government. At the local government level, the vaccines are to be stored in cold stores, and the process for the
All right, Bayo,
yes.
We're going to have to interrupt our newspaper review just before we commenced our news bulletin this morning. We did say that as part of our conversation segment, we're going to have an interaction with the governor of Zamfara State, as His Excellency Bello Mohammed Matawale. Our correspondents are aligned with him in Guzo. That's the Zamfara State capital. So, Baya, we have to sign you off for this time. Thank you very much. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. So, our correspondent, Shehu Mohammed Dati. All right. So, we're going straight to His Excellency, the governor of Zamfara State. You can see him there on the right side of your screen. Your Excellency, well, it's good morning and, of course, good news out of Zamfara today on account of the release of the 279 students who were abducted last weekend from Government Girls Secondary School in Jangebe. What are your feelings at this time?
These children, and you see all of us, the media, everybody is a joyful time because of what is happening this morning. The children are here, they are behind me, all of them are healthy, and we are taking them to our medical facilities to go through and examine the status of their health before we give them to their families.
Okay, Your Excellency, I'm sure you're exhausted. The students are exhausted after staying so long with their abductors. You're handing them to their families. What process would they have to go through before they reunite with their families?
Now we are taking them to go and rest for now. We have lodges in the government house. We are taking them there now. They have eaten. All of them, they have eaten. Some of them even they take 2 times because some of them are very hungry. So they eat very well. and we are now taking them to go and rest with the medical teams so that they should be seeing them in their own apartment. So if they see them and examine them and making sure that they are fit to go anywhere, then we can release them back to their respective families.
Well, in the 4 or nearly 5 days that the students were in the custody of their abductors, how much of an ordeal was this for you as governor of the state?
Very exhausted and very devastated because, you know, I doesn't experience this kind of situation, but this is what God has destined to happen during my time, and I thank God with the prayers of Nigerians and other good citizens, we are able to secure their release.
Your Excellency, tell us in the future, how would this not be allowed to happen again in your state?
Yeah, now we are going to sit down with our security personnel to re-strategize on the best way to protect our schools so that this cannot happen again.
What is the situation now with regard to other boarding schools in the state? I mean, there are reports of neighboring states shutting down their boarding schools, and educationists are quite concerned that this could well be a negative domino effect of the recent abductions.
Yeah, you see, what we are saying, like in my state, you know, we have two approach, kinetic and non-kinetic approach. And the non-kinetic is working for us because if it is not working, we cannot be able to get the secure of the release of these children. And we're going to continue with that non-kinetic approach so that we can be able to bring those that did not accept the peace deal so that they can accept our initiative so that the whole state and the region will be accept. We are going to try and re-strategize the best method so that we can bring everybody on board so that they can understand this peace and reconciliation. By doing so, I believe the whole region will be accept.
Is there going to be any psychological evaluation for these girls that have just been released? You know, they are girls, their needs are different, and how do you ensure that they don't go through trauma of what they went through in the hands of their abductors?
Department, and we're inviting them. They are all here with us. They are going to go undergoing counseling so that they can be able to understand and to believe what. And they are all Muslim. If you see them, they have no problem. And at least by seeing them and their activities, it's like nothing happens to them.
Well, Your Excellency, on Good Morning Nigeria yesterday, we of course discussed this question of banditry and kidnapping, particularly of school students. And one of our guests did say that what appears to be missing is that after every such horrific incident of abduction and release, there appears to be no post-mortem. That is to say, setting up a proper body or a proper commission or committee to evaluate what happened, why it happened, and how to forestall such future occurrences. Are you likely to adopt this method, this approach?
Of course, I have already discussed this with Inspector General of Police, with the Director of State Security Services, with the Chief of Defense Staff. There must be an open investigation on what exactly happened to that area, and the proof panel will be in place to investigate exactly what exactly happened in that schools. Thank you. Thank
you. All right. That was His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Zamfara State, Bello Muhammad Machawale, interacting with us there in Guzo, the capital of Zamfara State. Of course, you saw him in the front of the pupils or the students who've just been released. We'd like to appreciate his comments on this occasion that the 279 students who were abducted last weekend have now been released into the, of course, the safety and coziness of the state government. Now, we also indicated that we're going to have an interaction with our correspondent, Shehu Mohammed Dati, who was also with us yesterday from Jangebe. That's the epicenter of the abduction last weekend. Jangebe, of course, is in Talata Mafara local government area. We understand it's about 100 or so kilometers from the state capital, where the pupils, students now have been taken into custody by the state government. If we have our correspondent, Shehu Mohammed Dati, online, then of course. All right, you see him there on the right side of your split screen. Shehu, what is the mood in Jangebe this morning?
All right, very good morning. Jangebe is in a celebration mood. We happen to be in the town now. We are seeing people moving around in a joyful mood. Beside me is a house that one of the abductees lives, and we are trying to reach out to the mother to see maybe if she can talk to us and to express her own part of the way she's feeling now that the girls have been released. We are now moving into the house to see what is really going on. This is the house, and we are moving inside to see the mother and now talk to her about the release of these abductees.
Alhamdulillah. Mun yi murna mai. Alhamdulillah. Duk cikin murna.
To yanzu da haka ta faru kuma magana kuma makarantar su za ku bari su koma kuwa?
A za su koma. Ko ba mu kaddari.
Shehu Mohammed Dati, our correspondent. Well, it looks like the signals are poor inside the house where you are. If it is possible and you are hearing us, perhaps you could ask the interviewee to step out of the house and then meet you in an open space where you were previously and where the signals were much better. If you could do that, we could get back to you. Shehu, well, we understand that, of course, the signals are still not any better. Now, we have our correspondent. Correspondent Shehu, we understand you're out of the structure now. Just go ahead with your interaction and be sure to also interpret contemporaneously what your interviewer is saying.
All right, can we talk to her now? I'm out of the house now.
Go.
Okay. Hajiya, kamar yadda muka tsayanan kamar yadda muke magana, ya kuka ji yanzu da yake an sako wa'annan yaran naku?
Alhamdulillah. Mun yi farin ciki, mun yi murna. Allah shi tsare gaba, Allah shi kare mana. Allah shi mai da su gida lahiya. Kuma Allah shi biya inda da taimake su.
Yanzu a halin suna hannun gwamna, ya ce sai an tabbatar lahiyar su kafin a sako su. Ya kuka ji da haka?
Allah shi kawo lahiya.
Our correspondent there. And let's now move on to our Zoom interview with Muhammad Ali from Kaduna. And he's a security expert. Thank you so much for joining us. If you can hear me. See the latest development, in the release of the students of Government Girls Secondary School, Jangebe. We seem to have lost him there too, Kinsley.
That's right. I think our engineers are trying to get across to Mohammed Ali, who is one of our regular security analysts. He was also at some point a member of the Kaduna State House of Assembly. It looks like there are issues with his Zoom connection to us this morning. What does the most important thing is that the 279 students, 279 initially, they were said to be 317. But let's also just dispense with this issue. Well, of course, we know that it's often a crisis situation when bandits or abductors strike like this, and therefore it might take a while to get the exact number. Yes. But why do we often seem to mix up these numbers? We say 317 and then revise it down to 287 and now 279. The same thing that happened with Kankara boys. Kankara, they were said to be 344, and then later on were told that 333. But the good news is that they are back in one piece, and we do hope that they can get the psychological rehab that the governor has promised before they are released to their parents.
Muhammad Ali is now ready?
That's right. All right, so Muhammad Ali, we understand we having a clear channel to you now. My colleague Jumai was asking the question, what your reaction is to the release of the latest set of abductees, 279 of them, from Jangebe in Zamfara State.
I wish to congratulate the state governor and people of Zamfara State for the safe release of these students from captivity. But what this signifies is the urgent need for a partnership between public safety professionals, state governments across the Northwest geopolitical zone, and school managements in order to have a collaborative, comprehensive approach to hold these menace. Otherwise, it has the potential of destroying our already frustrated educational system. So something has to be done, and quickly too, in order to arrest the drift.
One case too many, and just close by from Katsina to Niger State to Zamfara State. Do you think, in your own assessment, the Safe School Initiative is just on paper and there was no implementation of this initiative?
I think the Safe School Initiative remains a mere paperwork. It has not been implemented, because if you look at the Kagara Secondary School, it doesn't look fit for human habitation, yet it is a secondary school, a boarding secondary school for that matter. Conducive environment matters in terms of learning. Where the school is not even conducive for habitation, how do you expect students to imbibe good knowledge or even good character? So I think the Safe School program has to be put to use, and properly too. Otherwise, we'll continue to have problems like this. And mark you, the boarding schools and their host communities are not in a position technically to be able to do something to repel attacks when they do come. And this is because in most of these schools, there are no security personnel guarding these schools. What we have is the traditional Megadi, who is about 70, 75 years old, very tired, and when it is 8 p.m. or thereabout, he's already gone to sleep. So, and how do you expect a single untrained person to confront a band of bandits that come in their hundreds? It is an impossibility. So government has to wake up and do something immediately in order to safeguard our schools.
Well, Muhammad Ali, there is a larger question. At the moment, nobody is interrogating the terms of the release of the abducted Jangebe school students. But it is obvious that whoever their abductors are, because that is also not part of the news we are hearing this morning, that the abductors who were heavily armed continue to be in possession of their heavy weaponry. What does this mean going forward?
Mr. Kingsley, crime is to be expected in every human society, since humans are never perfect. But the failure of justice in any human society is more dangerous to society than crime itself. Having said this, I think government should come up and face the reality of things. The fact is, most of the arrowheads of these bandit gangs are known to our law enforcement agencies. For example, Awolin Daudawa was the arrowhead that organized and spearheaded the kidnap of students at Kankara. Awolin Daudawa is an indigene of Faskari local government in Katsina State, but he resides in Safe local government in Zamfara State. Some times ago, himself and four other colleagues of his presented 24 AK-47 to the state governor under the pretext that they have key into the amnesty program. They're not going to go into banditry anymore. But what has happened now? It is too early. So it is important that Awolin Daudawa, ED Minority, and Dankarami, who are all criminal heads now residing in Zamfara State, should be rounded up and put to questions. And apart from that, we should be able to identify other people that are involved in gun running from the axis of Niger Republic down to Mali, that are bringing in arms and ammunition into this country, not only Zamfara State. And this again calls for so many questions about our ungoverned spaces and the porosity of our borders. All these are things that need to be taken into consideration for us to be able to make a headway in tackling these nuisance of banditry and kidnapping.
Thank you so much, Mohammed Ali, security expert. Thank you so much for your input this morning.
It's my pleasure.
We'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation will begin.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest asset the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youth, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
The second wave of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic is upon us.
To safeguard lives of our people, government has signed the health protection regulations, which makes wearing a face mask mandatory in public places.
Wear a mask. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Wash your hands regularly with soap and clean water, and use hand sanitizer.
COVID-19 is real. Do not be infected. Do not spread it. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Now to begin our conversation, let's take this background report put together by Abdusalami Jibril.
Recent abduction of students from their schools has opened a can of worms on the state of infrastructure in Nigerian schools. Across the country, schools without roof or partial roof, children learning while sitting on the bare floor and without desks, or children receiving lessons under trees or on completed buildings have sadly become a common sight. The physical environment in such schools not only presents a sorry sight, but also constitutes serious health hazard to the students. In many of these schools, laboratories are non-existent and where present lack basic equipment. Libraries seems to be a luxury. Instructional materials such as textbooks are barely available, while teaching aids for teachers is either not available or not enough. Dormitories lack the necessary amenities, while classrooms are mostly in a sorry state. Seasoned educators maintain that the condition of a school is one of several factors that determine the performance of students. However, the state of many schools in Nigeria leaves much to be desired. While experts have attributed the dilapidated state of these schools to negligence, lack of maintenance culture, and insufficient funds, among others, the question to ask is, how long will it take for these schools to be rehabilitated? What role should communities and other stakeholders play in the maintenance of schools in Nigeria? These are just some of the issues guests on the program will speak to in a moment.
Thank you very much there, Abdusalam Jibril, for that backgrounder, as we, of course, are taking on fixing dilapidated public schools. Let's welcome our guest this morning, First Distinguished Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, his Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate. Senator, pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. My pleasure to be here.
Also with us in the studios, we would like to welcome Honorable Danchung Musa Bagos. He's a member of the House of Reps, representing Jos South and Jos East Federal Constituency. Honorable Bagos, pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
And joining us from our Kaduna studio is Dr. Shehu Usman Mohammed Makarfi, Commissioner for Education, Kaduna State. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Education, Kaduna State.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
Kaduna studio Alhaji Haruna Anjuma, Kaduna State PTA Chairman and National President, National Parent Teachers Association of Nigeria, NAPTAN. Thank you so much for joining us.
Very much a pleasure.
Also joining us from Maiduguri studio is Executive Secretary, Borno State Education Trust Fund, May Naomi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Jumai. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Well, a full cast of gentlemen. Pleasure to have you with us. Let's actually start this conversation from our Kaduna Network Center, where my colleague Jumai a moment ago introduced Alhaji Haruna Danjuma, who is National President of the National Parent Teacher Association of Nigeria. We all saw the images out of the Government Science College, Kagara, after the students were abducted, along, of course, with some of their teachers and other residents on the premises. Those images, both in print and in videos, were obviously unsightly, whether the admin block, the dormitories, or what passed for dormitories, and so on and so forth. And that appears, of course, to be the case in a number of states of the Federation, particularly with regard to public schools. As a parent, and of course as president of this association, What is your reaction to those unsightly images of where students were supposed to be residing and taking instructions to become leaders of tomorrow?
Thank you very much. My reaction and reaction of all the entire parents whom we are representing nationwide, we feel very bad, and it's something that we are quite aware of. But the problem is our hands are so tied that with the introduction of free and compulsory education, PTA at all levels, knowing fully well that we have PTA at national, state, and local government, and also at school level, and all the 4 tiers of PTA that we have play their role in making sure that the school has what is supposed to be in place. Talking about the structures, the learning materials, and the teaching materials also. But things has changed drastically. Changed in the sense that government had come with policy that they will handle everything educationally, leaving parents only to be, producing their children and sending them to school, which we all agreed. And before the introduction of PTA, before the introduction of free education, PTA at all levels, we do, play our role in making sure that the needed structure, including the teaching and non-teaching staff, to augment the government on making sure that things are right. It is quite true that people are just looking at the structures alone. But when you go deep into our school, the public school in particular, they find that there are a lack of learning material. That is one of the reasons why you find that our children in public schools find it very difficult to meet up with the expected education when it comes to examination or any other educationally in particular. So if you consider that of the public and that of the private school, you see that they are ahead of our children that are in the public school. But the problem here is that this saying that in Hausa, in Dambuye or by Jumai, if things are too much on things, that's what food that is called dambu. If it's too much, hardly the oil that is supposed to be mixed up will be enough for the. As for the government, we expect to allow everybody to come on board to contribute to the quota. That will be very much okay with the government. But having said so, PTA, we are very much ready to come in and contribute to contribute not only to our children but for the teachers, because we are parent and teacher association where we put it together, we educate ourselves, we sensitize ourselves, we see to the need of making sure that our children are getting what they are in the school for. So these are my reaction to that one.
Okay, I'm still staying with you, Alhaji Haruna. As the chairman and national president of PTAs in Nigeria, have you taken it upon yourself to go around schools in this country to see areas where government needs to come in? And have you laid your problems before the government and no action has been taken? Are you comfortable with students staying in schools like that where there's lack of, shelter? I don't call these buildings I see there as shelter. It is not shelter. They are open to the elements, the cold, the wind, and everything. Have you in any way gone out around the country, assessed it, and brought it to government to look into it?
Of course, did. You see, years back, having gone through all this kind of thing and see for ourselves, I want to remind you of we have PTA chapter at all states. Among 36 states and FCT. We have PTA in all our schools. And we do have our meetings quarterly. So every 3 months we have our National Council meeting. And every state PTA is the executive member of our National Council, where he brought in situation reports, and we are aware, and where the needs for the body to visit a particular school or a state, we do. That was what made us to come up with the policy of this security awareness campaigns some years back, where we engaged the services of a security consultant. We flagged it off at Kano State, where, of course, Kano State have benefited very much, and they contributed. And it's not our own, role alone to do that. So we collaborated with the state government, the Kano State government. We also moved to Yobe State, and they very well, they allow us. The government contributed also. We wrote a letter requesting for other states to allow us to team up with us so that we can go to school and we educate our children, we educate the teachers, we sensitize them to make sure that they know how they can be on their own on the security matters. So also on the having a conducive atmosphere of learning, we are in for that. And of course, some years back, we plugged up another sensitization exercise at Benue State. On the teacher-child trade, we have with the representative from Federal Ministry of Education, UBEC, University Education Commission, NDE, that they have attended that one, and most of those have made presentation, and we find it very educative. From the Benue, so we moved to Nasarawa State, where the same thing happens. But since then, we've been faced with so many challenges, financially and mobility and all this kind of thing. So that was what made us to stop that one. And like I always said, I want to emphasize this, that this was the introduction of free and compulsory education. Knowing fully what the slogan is, education for all is the responsibility of us. So we expect the government, having said that they are giving free education, then they can allow parents to play their own role. That is where we team up together. It used to be in those days that we use our money, we tax ourselves, and before even going into that, we have to secure permission from the Honorable Commissioner of that particular state.
All right, thank you very much, Alhaji Haruna Danjuma. We'll return to our Kaduna Network Center shortly, but let's go over to Maiduguri, where we earlier introduced the Executive Secretary of the Borno State Education Trust Fund, Maina Yaumi. Malam Maina, well, Borno may not be a typical example to discuss the state of public schools on account of the fact that the state has been heavily impacted by terror activities over the past decade. But you are aware that in states that are not under a war situation, we are seeing these ramshackle structures and buildings that, of course, are not fit for purpose. But we do know also that in Borno, there has been some attempt at fixing public schools that were destroyed or damaged by the terrorists. In your opinion, where is the gap in maintaining public schools in the first instance in the absence of conflict or war?
Thank you, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians, once again. You said it rightly. When the insurgency erupted in 2009, they destroyed almost 533 schools in the state. And the successive governments from the leadership of Senator Kashim Shettima up to our present executive governor, Professor Babagana Omara Zulum, when he came on board, precisely one of his cardinal principles, objectives of his administration is to ensure that education does not only maintain the status quo, but should be given the greener advantage of securing the lost glory of the society. So in that context, His Excellency swung into action. I'm proud to say in the media, on television, that is the only school professor turned governor, I think is the first of its kind in Nigeria or perhaps in the world, And his passion for education actually prompted him to swing into full action. He took it upon himself to ensure that all the destroyed schools were rehabilitated, and in that context, he created additional organizations, especially that of Borno State Education Trust Fund, that has the mandate to ensure rehabilitation, consolidation, and development of entire spectrums of the educational sector in the state. So in that context, His Excellency, in the first 100 days in office, has constructed more than 100 mega schools in the state. So Borno today, I don't think we have issues of damaged schools any longer in the state, except for situations in other local governments where residents or citizens have not been opportune to go back to their localities, perhaps due to the insurgency going on over there. By and large,
now, last year your governor established the Borno State Education Trust Fund, which we call ETF, and you are the secretary. And among your responsibility is to monitor and evaluate the execution of ongoing educational projects. Where are you sourcing the funds to carry out all this responsibility?
By the acts establishing Borno State Education Trust Fund, 2.5% of local government fund accruing to the state is being given to the trust fund in order to take care of developmental affairs in the state. Similarly, 10% of all the state IGR is also being paid into the corpus of Borno State Education Trust Fund. And furthermore, we solicit international organizations, some donor agencies. We are also having some donations given to Borno State Education Trust Fund. We equally have 1% tax being collected from contractors. Similarly, there is a deduction of 1% of all the political office holders' allowances and salaries. So by and large, these percentages are what we usually use in funding the educational sector in the state.
All right, Maina Yomi, thanks a lot. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Let's now return to our Abuja headquarters studios. Distinguished Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, and of course, Honorable Dachung Musa Bagos, who's a member of the House of Reps. Gentlemen, some persons have said that the images that came out of Kagara exposed the rump of the state of public schools in the country, not just in Niger, but in some parts of the country. That's what we find. And of course, it was embarrassing seeing those pictures. In your opinion, is this a rude awakening to what needs to be done with fixing those rotten schools? Senator Abdullahi.
Thank you very much. Perhaps permit me to say a very big congratulations to the government and people of Zamfara State for the news coming out of that state this morning. And of course, the Kagara experience also. I want to congratulate the government and people of Niger State for at least having those kids back. For me, it is more than a rude awakening. And I think, there's always a peak in everything. It is just the peak that we have reached. The rude awakening has not come yet. And it is left for us to face the reality of what we are seeing now as we have reached the peak of the decay that has been the educational sector for the past 3 to 4 decades. And it is something you can say has happened on an incremental basis. The bulk of people who are in leadership position today, I think I can be right in saying that 80 to 70% of them went through the public schools as we know them today. I went to complete public school, from primary school in the village in Rofia, Agwara local government today, to Borgu Secondary School in Borgu local government, to ABU. And for me, what we witnessed and what is happening today is something that if you truly care for the future of this country, I think your heart must be bleeding. For me, my heart has always been bleeding when I realize that the opportunity I had, even being taught under the tree in Rufia and coming to where I am today, I think, honestly, there is something that is wrong with our educational system, beyond all the talks we have been doing. And I think what I have seen over the years, there is something very fundamental that we have thrown away, and that is educational planning. Just recently, we lost one of our illustrious sons in Borgu, Senator Aliu Gani. Senator Aliu Gani was an educationist. He was the Senate Committee Chairman on Education in the Second Republic during the MPN administration. And what I have learned from his life history, because I had to present his death in the chamber, and of course I asked for his information on his biography, I realized that what we witnessed those days was a function of very sound, strong educational planning, which today you can say is missing. It's completely missing. Because the educational planners we used to have those days, we sit down and look and assess the need. And when they are talking about the need, they are talking about the complete need for a functional education. You are talking about the infrastructure, you are talking about the structure, or is it the superstructure, that is the instructional aids and materials and the like. And then you are also talking about the training and retraining of the teachers. And I think it was because of this we used to have the teachers training colleges, and you can see that professionals were manning fully the educational sector. But unfortunately today, we are bringing in just people who, because even if you're an educationist, are you an educational planner? Are you an educational administrator? Because these are different ball games. And I have realized that even those days, because of the kind of planning that went into how our schools are run, you could see that even without the fence, students were disciplined enough to know that this is my boundary. Now, but times have changed. And if you have a strong planning educational system, you will have realized that, of course, it is time for you to begin to upgrade the infrastructure, which means, for example, the aspect of security. Because the moment you start witnessing insecurity, the next thing you need to begin to talk about is how do you secure the children in a location. And security in that context, we mean both the fencing and the other technology-driven support you will have, and then also the hostels, even where the children sleep. As it is, from what we have seen, most of the schools, they don't even have doors to their dormitory. You walk in and you walk out. And the fences, most of them are collapsed because in the first instance, they were not properly built. They were not built to last anyway. They're just maybe contract given to some people, they just whoosh, and so on and so forth. So I think for me, unfortunately, I think just about a week ago, the Senate debated very robustly the need for safe school in our schools. And I think one of the highlights of the recommendation or the resolution we took was to say that we are urging the Federal Ministry of Education to call for an emergency National Council on Education meeting so that they can put in place a very strong committee that will begin to look at this safe school initiative in a much better fashion, because you need to assess where the threats are. Obviously, there are some places that are more threatened. And because they are more threatened, you need to begin to think about what needs to be done. By the way, we have the Universal Basic Education Fund. It is time for that fund to go back into providing the necessary infrastructure to secure our schools. Because if you don't secure the children, then what are you going to achieve? And by the way, by the fear being injected through this harrowing experience, it is obvious some parents will definitely drag their feet in releasing their children to go back to school. And we all know the difference. Those days we used to have the debate between day and boarding. There is no debate in here. Everybody knows a boarding student is better off than a day student. That one does not require any debate. If you went through a boarding school, you will know the kind of routine you are taught. And that will follow you for the rest of your life because you become more structured, more organized, and better focused than a day student who comes in. And of course, he might be joining his friends to go for events when he's supposed to be studying. So I think...
Or supposed to be observing a siesta.
Yeah, or having a siesta so that he can refresh his brain. So I think for me, the situation we have today calls for a national emergency in education. Because, like you said, all these things are pointing to something. And if we want to grow as a country, we must bring up a standard that everybody can ascribe to. And in ascribing to it, provide the opportunity for our best hands to be at the helm of affairs and to also drive the growth and prosperity of this country. So I think, to me, this is what needs to be done, and perhaps many more other things that people can suggest, because we have very bright minds. We have people who understand what it takes to run schools. And today, if you look at it, we're talking about even the infrastructure. What of sports? I went through a boarding school where in the evening you go, you choose your sport and go and collect the equipment. Now you see schools, they don't even have any sport. Children will be the ones to make up sports equipment or even buy. So these are the challenges. And I think until we really address these issues, perhaps, like I said, coming back to why I said it's more than we have not gotten to the rude awakening. The moment we don't address this, then we can begin to imagine the kind of children we are grooming as future leaders of this country. I think we need to do something.
Okay, Senator Aliyu, thank you so much for your opening comment. And in 2017, the World Bank, says learning outcomes in Nigeria are below par. And that means there is even a greater need of addressing the educational sector in Nigeria. He has called for an emergency in the educational sector. What is your take on that?
Yeah, taking from the point of view that the distinguished senator of us enumerated now, to me, I want to look at 3 to 4 areas because the issues are there. We all know that we have serious challenge in terms from the educational sector. One, effective monitoring and evaluation from the legislators, be it the States House of Assembly and the National Assembly. One. Secondly, political will. Thirdly, personal will from the Parents Teachers Association. On paper, we have the best policies that have to be given in terms of education in Nigeria. Where you go, the budgetary provision is there. Whatsoever UBEC needs to give in terms of education is there. And that takes me to political will. And when you go and you check the UBEC Act, that states need to pay for counterpart funding. And at the end of the day, states that know that they're supposed to benefit from funds from UBEC hardly even pay for the counterpart funding. If not for the past few years, that federal government have to force and to divert the Paris Reform Club of every state to UBEC to match in their grants to be able to access most of those funds. So to tell you that the political will in really giving the best of education in various states, it's lacking. Because if the political will is there, just like the Borno, I must commend the Borno state government, that even one of the steps is having the trust fund in education, in education trust fund. Having such on ground, having the kind of political will to drive the process will give us a better and a long way. I was part of research in checking funds that were put into education sometime in 2007. It will surprise you to know that if 10 naira has been released at the federal level for a primary school in one village. Along the line, it's only 1 naira that reaches the school. The facts are there. The research is there. Meaning that the educational sector has been turned to a contract-giving sector. That if you see people moving into UBEC today, they are not asking UBEC that what is the status, what kind of structure are you giving to my own school in the village, but rather they are going into UBEC to check for, to be given contracts for schools around the country. If you go to whatsoever budgetary provision that is being given in the educational sector today, 70% of people are going in to get to ask for contract. Is it school books, whatsoever, school feeding, and so on and so forth. So the political and personal will, we need to check that, first of all, what is it that we really need in the educational sector? I made research that, okay, the public school I went to, my father was a local government chairman in the 80s, and I was in a public school as his son. And I said, okay, now being in a position now, let my children go to public school. The same public school I went to in the 80s, I cannot dare take my child to that same school. Number one, security, the high risks of insecurity in the entire area, it's something else. Infrastructure, it's no longer there. And again, mind you, that the public school have one of the best well-trained teachers compared to private schools, because private schools, they just take in if you are a graduate in the university and so on. But the public school have one of the best trained teachers along the line, from NCE to NTA and so on and so forth. But they have the manpower, but they don't have the infrastructure to be able to give the children the best whatsoever they need. So looking at effective monitoring and evaluation, political will, personal will by the Parents Teachers Association, and my little apology to the president of PTA. A union is supposed to put pressure on policies to see that the policies that are in place are effective. Unions are not supposed PTA are not just supposed to be there to contribute money, because I'm a member of PTA, but what PTA, 70 to 90% of what PTA does is that to contribute money to be able to either build fence or to build another classroom. But policies and funds are already there, provided by government in budgetary provision. So PTA are supposed to put pressure on government to be able to see that what is on paper, it's the reality on ground. But unfortunately, PTA has been turned to where you can just go and contribute to build 1 or 2 blocks of classrooms. And to me, that's the role I see. That is the area of personal will. So, but till we go back to the drawing board, like the distinguished senator said, what the resolution from the Senate will not get anywhere. Because the decay of education in Nigeria, it's going to affect the next generation. Because the primary education, if you don't have the best in primary education, forget about whosoever wants to be the senator or the House of Reps member or the president or governor, because the foundation is very key. The best of students you have in primary education is what will give you the best in secondary. And from the secondary is what will give you the best in the university. But if that is missing, and psychologically, look, if the international community will come and see the children in the schools you just shown, first of all, they will say we have psychiatric problem in management of school education. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Because we have psychiatric problem, because it's in a psychiatric home that you will see people staying and lying down in that kind of environment. Absolutely. So, till we really understand and start checking ourselves and start looking at education as providing the best for the next generation, not a contract hope for politicians and for stakeholders, then we'll be able to realize and understand that we have. But if we continue in that line, I don't know who will take over after you, Kingsley and Jume, in the next 10, 15 years in the studio. Maybe God forbid, that in the studio we will have bandits here with guns by the side presenting Good Morning Nigeria. But if we don't do something, I can assure you that we'll be in trouble in the next generation. Yeah.
So are we sitting on a keg of gunpowder?
Absolutely.
That is why I said, he said rude awakening. I said no, we are not yet at the rude awakening stage. Because by the time we are going to have citizens who are having half-baked education, who are having,
are we not already having
convoluted,
it now?
Psychology of everything, then that's when we'll be having that kind of growth. But God forbid. But the point I just want to quickly make, is about the PTA. I agree with my colleague that yes, the PTA is supposed to be a pressure point. But is it not when you are able to see the object that you will be pressurizing, that you'll be able to put pressure? What exactly are the educational policies? The key issue, I think we must agree, is that the political will in different states becomes the principal driver of what kind of progress we're going to see. The reason is simple. If a man comes out with an educational policy, and the PTA, for me, I don't see them as pressure points or pressure pushers alone. Their interest is the welfare of their own children. You understand? So within that context, they will want the school to do well. And they try to give their help within that context. And I think perhaps what we could rightly say here is that because they also give this kind of support, they are helping to subsidize the government and giving room for double counting. In many instances, what the PTA people do, if you go back and check the books, I'm sorry, you will find government claiming funds over and above what the PTA people have done. So I think the issue is more complex than seeing the PTA, because PTA are parents. Like you said, you are a member of PTA, I'm a member of PTA. They may call for a meeting. I may not have the chance to go. It is more or less like a voluntary organization trying to help to move the school where my child is located. So, and I think the point to be made here is that, yes, I agree, they can do more, because within the context of membership of the PTA, they have different experts and professionals. So they could galvanize all of this to maybe perhaps, coming back to the question you asked earlier, to do an evaluation. And since they have membership across the states and local government, they can do their own independent evaluation, and that kind of thing can be aggregated into a national picture.
Yeah, all right. Well, Honorable, we're going to have to pause you gentlemen in the studios so that we take one of the guest hosts been silent, because we haven't gone to him. It's in Kaduna, and with the national president of the national PTA. Of course, he's the Commissioner for Education in Kaduna State, Dr. Shehu Usman Muhammad Makarfi. Delight once again to have you. Of course, you've listened to the comments of the other guests, but tell us, in your opinion, why are public schools in such a dilapidated state in some states of the Federation, and what should be done to fix them?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Thank you all. I mean, basically what they have said as Nigerians, we know that's quite the facts on ground. And I will tell you that in Kaduna State, for example, over 30% of the total budget for the year is devoted to education. But again, I have said this several times, that 30% is 30% of something. For me, for example, if the whole total budget of the state is devoted to education in 1 year, we will not solve the problem we have in education for that period. I've heard of comments about dilapidation. I've heard of comments of about blown roofs. In public schools, in Kaduna State, for example, out of 540 secondary schools, during this rainy season, we have an experience of over 60 of them blown off during the rainy season. Over 4,200 primary schools, over 200 of them had their roofs blown off. These are many challenges. I think I agree absolutely with the distinguished senator if we'll have national emergency on education, because that's when we'll look at how much are we investing in education, how much are we budgeting for education, both at the state, both at federal, state, and local government levels. And then, how are we accounting for the resources invested in education? And I want to say this. When government or national policies, state policies at different levels declare education as free and compulsory, that does not mean that everybody should fold his arms or her arms and just look at this for government to fund it. No. We should all make our own contributions to support education in our various environments. Government, I want to declare and say it vividly without contradiction, that do not have the resources to fund the requirements of education at every level. Take, for example, in Kaduna State, I have 1.9 million children going to nursery and primary school in public school alone. Just take one child per head, just one child. Do a little calculation of what is involved in the uniform when you are giving free education, the uniform, teaching materials, classroom accommodation, salary of teachers, and so on and so forth. How much are you expecting to expend on a child in a year? Then look at about 600,000 children going to secondary schools. We have about 40,000 at the higher education, and so on and so forth. By total, both in primary, in nursery, primary, secondary, and university and higher education within Kaduna State, I have 3.1 million students going to school. Now, how much do you need to fund them? I know tertiary education is not free completely, but for example, in college education, we don't collect tuition fee. So I absolutely agree that we need to look at a lot of investment in education. We devoted over 30% of our budget. By last year, June, when we wanted to make some expenditure to bring back our blown-off schools to shape, we had no money in that account. It's off because we've exhausted all in making one repair or the other. And what we are simply trying to say is that management of education requires the hands of government, parents, other teachers, NGOs, and everybody. So for us to say that we are doing well, particularly in securing our institutions, you are not only looking at four-wall classroom, you are also looking at the security of that school, the enabling environment, the qualified teachers, the provision of teaching materials, instructional materials. All these are borne by what I agree with one of the speakers that say that you need an educational planner who will plan to say that this is what we require over this year and over time within, to give you a very projected expenditure for years. But then, when you have this, how do you generate the resources to meet up what you have planned? That's very critical. It shouldn't be only by one arm. All the three arms need to sit down and look at what is available to them and how do you invest them, how do you spread it, and what are we going to achieve, what is the outcome. In what you have seen that you call horrific pictures, in any school, to provide appropriate security, you need to understand where is that school located, what's the relationship with that school, with the environment, the community around them, how secure that school, wall fence, what is the distance between that school and any security outpost that if they cry out, security will be able to reach them within 30 minutes. And then what is the security architect in the school? Do they have any security committee that they will discuss among themselves and say, okay, in case something happens, this is how we raise an alarm, and so on and so forth. These are resource-driven issues. And I think it is high time now, what is happening, we must go back to all agree among ourselves that since education is on the concurrent list, both federal government, state government, local governments, and others need to sit down and look at what do we need to drive our education qualitatively. What do we need to drive our education forward? What do we need to go out of where we are? No amount of budget provision percentage as declared will be able to fund education in a particular state at a particular time. It's very critical for us to understand that education requires a lot of investment. If you look at what is happening in private schools, the private schools, it's not that they have the best teachers. The difference is that they manage teachers. They manage a number, that number within the limit of their environment, and they manage them well. But because we have free education, every child must go to school, and you find that the schools, four-wall classroom will not be able to accommodate all of them. So that means we need more money. We need to inject more resources in that. But do we have that resources to inject based on the revenue accruing to the state, based on what we are getting from whatever source? That the answer is no. So I want to agree with the fact that we need to declare education as an emergency at the national level, and then we need to agree, stakeholders need to sit down and look at how do we bring back these values in education so that others will have confidence in the system. We need to also see, within the context we are discussing today, the security of our children in our schools is very, very critical. And for you to provide that, there is something beyond the limit of educational cycle. It is outside education. Environment where schools are sited, the security agencies to reach those that school is very critical. Alarms are raised in schools. We've studied what happened in Zamfara. We've studied what happened in Kagara. We've studied what happened in in the other state. There is an alarm, but before the security arrive, the bandits have gone away with them. What kind of security actor will you have in a school other than information delivery that will combat or you face those bandits that are coming in hundreds? So the fact is that there is a need for us to examine all of this. If we don't, really, gradually, our children will stop going to school. Since Chibok girls, I have been watching, I have been examining that in the state. Since Chibok girls incidents, students have been dwindling. Each time we open school, the number will not go back. Half of them will not go back at the beginning. Only gradually, 1/3 will go back. But we have never, ever recorded full resumption when we open schools, because, and we'll be following up to ask why. They will tell you security issue. We want our children to stay at home. It's better for me to have my child at home, not going to school, than to have them somewhere and every day I will be sleeping with one eye open. These are critical issues. Even these last 3 days, we've gone around our institutions, our boarding schools. That is the question. That is the answer. The same answer. The number in a school where we have 1,000 students boarding, you find that only 700 or 600 have returned. Please, this is not only a state issue, it's not a local government issue, it's not only a federal government issue, it's a collective issue, and I hope National Assembly will take this more seriously for us to have a rethink in what we are doing in driving our education forward. Thank you.
Indeed, it is a collective issue. We'll take a break right now. When we return, the conversation will continue.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the game changer, His Excellency Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State. Broadcasting in a digital economy, Maxwell Logo gives an insight. This edition also features Nancy Naji of AIT, a name synonymous with business. Meet the NCDC boss, Dr. Chikwe Ihekweazu. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, also x-rays the relevance of social media in the modern society. Meet some TV professionals who have impacted their spaces and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy. Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
The broadcast media ecosystem is dynamic and requires continuous training for practitioners to perform optimally. NTA TV College Jos invites relevant officers to the following specially packaged training programs. Intermediate online news reporting skills. Date 1st March to 12th March 2021. 2 weeks. Studio lighting indoor and outdoor. Date 1st March to 5th March 2021. 1 week. Modern trends in broadcast media marketing. Date 15th March to 9th April 2021. 4 weeks. Understanding public service rules and mastering the art of standard minute writing, reports, memoranda, and briefs. Date 15th February to 12th March 2021. 4 weeks. The course fee for the 4-week courses is 100,000 naira per participant. The fee for the 2-week course is 80,000 naira, while the course fee for the 1-week course is 40,000 naira only. Accommodation inclusive. Venue for all the courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Don't ask why I'm chuckling. Off air, the senator, the honorable member, and myself and my colleague Juma, we're just reminiscing on our days in the boarding house and the discipline that you got from being a boarding student, which is not to say that these students aren't disciplined, but of course there are certain things that, of course, you continue to act out decades after you have left boarding school. But let's return to the subject matter of fixing dilapidated public schools in Nigeria. I'm going back to Maiduguri Network Center, where Maina Yaume is. Maina Yaume, well, can you tell us part of what is playing out in Borno today that may very well be an example to learn from the peers of your governor? Apparently, paucity of funds is not an alibi to say, oh, we don't have funds. What is it that the Borno state government is getting right with fixing schools that were ruined by insurgency, and how is it doing it? Because we keep hearing funds are not enough, and then you hear persons saying at one point that you need 350 million naira to build a school. And I'm asking, is it a university or what?
Thank you, Kingsley. His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Borno State, has been so proactive on issues of education. And having realized that state government alone cannot shoulder the responsibility of education in total, decided to have a 25-year development plan for Borno State. This one will have a long-term effect on sustainable development and economic development, with emphasis on human capital development, towards education, towards gender, arts and culture, youth and sports. In addition to that, that emphasis on long-term development plan has to look on issues of agriculture and sustainable economic development. On that note, other international organizations who saw that despite all the constraints His Excellency is going through, they saw the need to salvage together so that Borno State, in terms of education, moves ahead. International donor agencies, World Bank, UNICEF, United Nations humanitarian organizations, Red Cross societies have all come on board. Today in Maiduguri, you have quite a number of international organizations that have come from all over the world to ensure that humanitarian gesture is being rendered to the state that has for over a decade long been ravaged by the insurgency. Now, coming to the issue of education, His Excellency, having seen the need to forestall the destroyed institutions, decided to form a committee on education that has the responsibility of enrolling out of school children. And in fact, majority of students that have finished JSS 3, that are supposed to go to SS 1, were mostly out of schools. He took it upon himself to go around to places like Monguno himself and ensure that these children are enrolled back to school. I give you an instance. Last week, a total of about 185 students from the 16 disadvantaged local governments in the states secured admission into Federal Government College Maiduguri. And he took it upon himself to register, to pay the registration fee and other charges totaling over 33 million naira. The principal of the school confirmed that this is the first time ever in the history of that institution for a state government to shoulder paying students tuition fee and registration fee. That's taking the bull by the horn. This is the leadership by example. Now His Excellency had to go out of his way himself to travel down to as far as Damasak to enroll people from primary school that are supposed to enter into primary school. So these are practical steps he has taken, and that is the more reason why today in Borno you see parents who ordinarily have sent their school children to private schools are drawing them back to public schools. If you go to any of the public schools in Maiduguri, classes are fully air-conditioned. A very conducive environment for learning to take place. School buses were provided where children can go to schools under a safe condition. Furnitures were provided. In some instances, uniforms were given. Whiteboards have taken over the whole school. You can't hardly see any blackboard in schools. Markers were provided. And because of the COVID-19 compliance, you see all the issues related to safety guidelines, issues related to hand sanitizers, face masks, were all distributed. Some parents have taken their responsibilities. Government, on the other part, have also ensured that children comply to these COVID-19 regulations. Now, going back to other local governments, you find out that massive constructions have been going on. Today, the problem is not about infrastructure. Perhaps what we are lacking is lack of probably qualified teachers. That has been his emphasis. Structures are there, but the teachers are not there. The few ones that are supposed to be there have gone on retirement. He gave us the mandate to go back and consider those the ones that have retired, do some investigations, conduct some interview. Those ones that can still come back to teach, we take them on a contract basis, not as a permanent staff of the government. These are issues that he has taken it holistically. He has asked for even teachers, especially physics, chemistry, and biology. In some schools, you find out only one teacher of physics is taking a whole set of SS 1, 2, 3. That's even in Maiduguri. What more of other localities that are hardly being reached by students? Now, in order to give incentives to teachers, any teacher that is posted to outside Maiduguri is given a special package, different from those ones that are sent in Maiduguri, in terms of salary, in terms of incentives. You know, these are all motivations. And what keeps this institution moving is motivation.
All right, thank you very much, Maina Yaomi, there for that elaborate explanation. Let's quickly take a look at the tweets that have come in from our viewers, and then we'll return to our guests to get what could be their closing thoughts. Dele Jack Solomon says, poor facilities hurt both students and teachers. Research shows classroom environment and climate, environmental hazards, heat, and other pollutants adversely impact students' ability to learn and their short-term and long-term health.
And Suleiman Babagana tweets, a positive classroom environment helps improve attention, reduce anxiety and support emotional and behavioral regulation of students. When a desirable environment is created, learners are more likely to acquire higher motivation that leads to wonderful learning outcomes.
Mike Anyakwa, fixing dilapidated schools and maintenance of good ones must be top priority of any administration, whether in time of crisis or not. The concern is that we pay lip service to issues until disaster occurs. It's high time officials designated with various responsibilities sat up.
And Mutana Farouk tweets, the recent threat on security in schools calls for the infrastructural fortification and securing life and property in schools. Schools may have to create their internally formidable security since the security agencies do not have the numbers in terms of personnel.
Law Alpha C, a special intervention fund has to be set aside for fixing the dilapidated primary, secondary, and even tertiary schools, which will be managed by the federal government and states and withdrawn from their statutory allocations. And why do you want another special intervention fund? You have UBEC already.
Of course.
And you have SUBEBs, and you listen to what Meduguri, well, of course, Borno is doing with regard to fixing their schools.
And Chris Simon tweets, education is the best legacy parents, guardians, and government can give to their children and people. If government fails to give prior attention to education, what should be the fate of our children in schools?
And you have this from Bello Muhammad. The culture of maintenance is not being given appropriate attention. Our lawmakers must ensure that money appropriated for maintenance is judiciously applied.
And Ahmed Mohammed tweets, the government should budget more for education sector and set up an agency that will overlook and ensure development of secondary schools. We have SUBEB, we have all that on ground already. I think we don't
That's
need
right, it's to get them to do their work.
We don't need a duplication of all these agencies.
That's right. Now, well, this is from Festus Akimboyewa, that's the last we're taking. Sadly, there are many dilapidated school buildings that are crumbling around teachers and students in our country. Government at all levels must assess the condition of all school buildings and fix those in need of immediate repairs. Thanks a lot for your tweets. Senator Shabi Abdullahi, one point that has also emerged from all of this, on the part of lawmakers, whether at the national or sub-national level, we keep hearing about constituency projects, These rotten schools are in the constituencies of the lawmakers. Couldn't it be also a wake-up call for lawmakers to say, look, I'm going to look around and see which schools I could take as my constituency project, rather than having a situation where, according to the ICPC, so-called constituency projects are certainly no projects at all.
Well, thank you very much. I will not be dragged into the comments of the ICPC, but let me say very clearly that for me, thank you for bringing this up. And I will say without fear of being contradicted that many of our colleagues are having consistency projects having to do with schools infrastructure. For me, as I speak, I have provided school infrastructure in the primary school where I attended, the secondary school where I attended, and of course, if you go to Borgo Secondary School today, I've given it a new look, and I'm still working every year that I get any opportunity. I'm pushing in, infrastructure there. Women Day College Kontagura, I've given them projects, and we're still doing the same thing. So I think it's true, and I think it's actually an area of need for us to be able to. But most importantly, let me say that it is time for us to go back to educational planning. Educational planning that will project our needs as population begins to increase, and the quality of these needs, because it is when we bring in real educationists. This idea of people who went to university coming back and, an educationist is an educationist.
Do we need to bring out the teachers' college? Do we need to bring it back?
Absolutely. Honestly, I am of the strong opinion that it is time for us to lay a solid foundation by bringing back the teachers' college. Because if you go back to the teachers who went through teachers' college, did NCE, went to university, you can't compare them with that who went to secondary school, went to do NCE. You cannot compare them, because that molding that takes place during the period of your secondary education as a teacher is key to the success of a teacher, like you have described earlier. When you don't come to school, they go to you. They are trained. And I think it is high time. What is good is good. We should go back to that.
Honorable Bagos. Constituency
My-
projects targeting rotten schools.
Absolutely. Like virtually every National Assembly member, we have constituency projects that have to do with school infrastructure. I just commissioned one in my constituency last 2 weeks. So excited that the school has solar in a very remote village, but they have the solar light, fan, and the office of the headmaster. It was in that school that the headmaster said that now he will be recognized as a headmaster. You know, in those days, when you see a headmaster, you hail that he's a headmaster. But because of how because of how the infrastructure in schools if you go to a village now, it's only a politician that enter, they hail him, no longer a headmaster. But sincerely, the infrastructure, all National Assembly members, year in, year out, we bring in building of schools and so on and so forth in our various constituencies. But to me, there's one interesting component in UBEC Act and in implementing their projects is that the school-based management committee, they have what they call school-based management committee, that in every community, there's that committee that supervise the projects and so on and so forth. And that still takes me to monitoring and evaluation. That do we really check these projects that we take in to various constituencies as constituency projects? Because a same school alongside with a house that has been built in 1970, but the school that was built 2 years ago, wind will come and blow the school, but that house is still standing. Which means the school has not been managed, poor quality of water. So those are issues that has been a problem.
All right, thanks a lot, Honorable Bagos. We are pressed for time. Very quickly, Dr. McCarthy, Commissioner for Education, Kaduna State. I don't know whether we're going to have enough time before we interrupt you and end the program, but I was just wondering what the responsibility of students and the administrators of the schools themselves should be. Administrators, I'm not referring to the principal, vice principal, and others. Again, using the example of Government Science College in Kagara. Look, these are science students, for goodness sake. So they couldn't, erect their own fence. They couldn't fix their own broken ceilings. They couldn't repaint their buildings or what? And they are science students.
Thank you. In Kaduna State, what we are doing is to ensure we have a very strong schools management boards for the boarding institutions and school-based management committees for the day secondary schools. And we are devolving powers, a lot of them, back to these people. They will take charge, or they are taking charge of all this that you have mentioned in their own institutions. Previously, before now, sewing of uniform, issue of feeding were based in the headquarters, but now we have devolved it back to the schools. They will be responsible for a lot of things at that grassroots. School improvement grants is sent to these people to manage their institutions. This will empower them to ensure that small things as it happens, they are taken care of by them, rather than to wait for it until it grows beyond a reasonable level. And again, it's very critical for us to also understand that there is the need, we're strengthening the relationship between the school management at its own level and the communities, for them to understand that locating that school in that community requires the support of the people around the community, and again, appropriate funding, and again, ensuring that there are adequate teachers. We are just interviewing 7,600 teachers now in Kaduna State for them to be employed to reinforce what is happening in our schools. You may recall what happened few previous back, where we replaced about 23,000 primary school teachers. These are things, and we have returned all this to the school-based management committees and the school management boards to tell us more, to do part of that management that we cannot do from the headquarters. We have devolved powers and created local government area committees, education committees to manage the institutions around that, particularly in the area of infrastructure, feeding, and school management systems. It is critical to do this because when you have, for example, in Kaduna State, we have about 541 secondary schools, 4,260 primary schools. You cannot continue micromanaging this institution from somewhere. So taking them back to the communities, for them to take decisions, and for us to support their decisions always is what we think is key to strengthen these institutions. As we are doing that, for example, during the weekend, we moved to some institutions like in the aftermath of what happened in Zamfara, there are some schools we felt they are more or less like an outskirt. We met with the community leaders, we met with the security agents, and the rest, and they agreed, okay, what do you want to do? We want to move out these students to another safer environment. That we
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Shehu Usman Mohammed Makarfi, for your input. And from what we've, gotten from all the conversation we've had in the studio, the education needs a national emergency. That's Good Morning Nigeria for today. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I'm Kingsley Osadollah. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Our deep appreciation to our guests today.